Albert Breer, senior NFL reporter, lead content strategist for the Monday Morning Quarterback, joining us on the program. Before we get to Antonio Brown, more interesting quarterbacking situation. Cleveland, Pittsburgh.
I think Cleveland, because Cleveland to me is more indicative of where like the quarterbacking dynamic is going across the NFL right now. Pittsburgh's, I think, sort of where like New England was coming out of 2019, where Denver was coming out of 2015, where it's you had a quarterback who's been there forever, who's won Super Bowls, and now you got to replace him. And we've seen that happen over and over and over again over the history of the NFL. What Cleveland's facing, I think, is a little bit like, it's not exact, but it's a little bit like what we've talked about before, Dan, with the Rams and the Niners, where like you're happy with your quarterback. You can win with your quarterback. You've shown that you can get to the playoffs with your quarterback, but is that enough? And I think it's sort of the Mahomesization of the NFL, where teams are looking at these opponents that have Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, and the climb up that mountain is steep. And so it's not, are you asking, are we okay with Baker Mayfield? I think the Browns are okay with Baker Mayfield. It's more, how much better do we need to be than Baker Mayfield at quarterback to get ourselves in a position to contend for championships? And so I think very much that way. You look at where the Browns are, and it's not that Baker Mayfield isn't a functional NFL quarterback. It's how are we going to compete for the next 10 years with Patrick Mahomes in the AFC, with Lamar Jackson in the AFC, with Josh Allen in the AFC, with Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow in the AFC. And is Baker Mayfield good enough to get us there? And I think because of the way he's played this year, they're going to be exploring outside options to answer that question.
Well, I think you reported this, that Cleveland could be in the market for Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering this, though, because maybe the Browns are going to have to face this dilemma. Do we pay him $18 million, which I think Baker's owed this next year, mm-hmm. and get through that season and run the risk of he might play into a contract extension? Or do we just rip the Band-Aid off and say, we're in the market for another quarterback here, even though we could get maybe a bargain at $18 million with Baker?
Well, one nuance that I think we have to remember with that is that the fifth-year options get fully guaranteed now. In the past, it wasn't. In the past, you were able to cut your first-round pick from 4 years earlier if you got to the end of the fourth year and you'd exercise the option. Now you don't have the same flexibility to do it. So, but I do think the Browns could probably find a trade partner for Baker Mayfield. Like, let's say Sean Payton's still in New Orleans next year. Then, I think they would be looking at options at quarterback, and Sean loved Baker Mayfield coming out in 2018. So would there be a home like that for Baker Mayfield? So I do think there'll be some options out there for them to move him. I think to answer the question, Dan, you have to look at where their roster is, and I look at their roster and they're in position to compete for a championship right now. If Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are available, is there any guarantee you get a year from now and the dynamic's going to have changed at all? Mm-hmm. I think you almost have to take advantage of that sort of opportunity, especially when you look at the landscape of college football. And are you sure that there's going to be a great one available to you over the next 2 years? It's just, I think you look at the Brown situation and you got to say to yourself, there's a lot of good momentum coming off the last 2 years, despite what's happened this year and them not making the playoffs. The franchise is in a good spot. The roster's in a good spot. You can compete for a championship right now. And, that's why I think they're going to look at it the same way the Rams looked at their situation last year, which is we need to strike while the iron's hot. Let's take a look at what the options are out there. And the top options look like they're going to be Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, and we'll see what happens, Aaron Rodgers.
I wondered about this. I think people speculated when Mike Tomlin was fawning all over Aaron Rodgers earlier this year.
Yep.
And people wondered, hey, Aaron Rodgers, Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin, they're going to need a quarterback there. Could you see? I hate to do this, but we have to start landing the planes here somewhere of where we think these guys are going to end up. But let's say Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay.
Yep.
Probably going to be in the AFC, correct?
I would say that'd be the preference. Yeah, if you're the Packers, the preference would be to ship them out of the conference.
Okay. Would Denver or Pittsburgh make more sense for the Packers, knowing what they're going to get?
I think Denver would be the biggest player for him. Denver is going to have, in all likelihood, a higher draft pick. I think Denver would be willing to go the extra mile to get him. Denver has some players on the team that you might want if you're Green Bay. And, I just like Denver was on his list last year too, if I remember right. And so I just think there's a lot of things about the way Denver set that situation up that are built for a veteran quarterback to come in and win. And, it's the receiver group, a young receiver group. It's not unlike what Peyton Manning walked into, right? In 2012 with Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker and Julius Thomas at tight end. They've got the same sort of setup there with Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler and Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. So you got that.
Do I factor in, though, Peyton maybe taking over or being part of the ownership in Denver?
That would be like a plus for Aaron Rodgers, I would think, right?
Is that in play, do you think?
I mean, I think Peyton Manning as an NFL owner has been in place since he retired.
Yeah.
I mean, I like everything I understand. I don't know if you've heard this, Dan, but like there had always been the assumption that Peyton was going to want to be a football executive at some point and run his own show. And I remember hearing all the way back when, he signed with Denver, it was actually sort of a side benefit for him that he got to see John Elway do that job, because John Elway's background obviously has parallels to Peyton going into that sort of job, right? So like there's that Peyton's always had that kind of in the back of his head that maybe he wants to be a football executive. And then two, I've also heard that the Manning family's always sort of had an eye on ownership. And that was part of the reason why over the years, Peyton Manning never took less on contracts. Eli Manning never took less on contracts. They always did a lot of endorsements. Like I'd always heard that sort of idea that the Manning family was building capital to maybe someday be able to buy a team. Now, I don't know if they have the capital to buy a team outright, but to be a part of an ownership group, like that would make some sense. And if you were putting together an ownership group in Denver, a group to bid on it in Denver, that'd be a pretty powerful guy to have on your side, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And, I know Peyton really loves living there. That's the other thing. Part of the reason why I think, he has been a little slow to take a job as a football executive, because those opportunities have been available to him, is because he lives a very comfortable life, in Denver now. And so there are a lot of things there that sort of line up where it would make sense, if Peyton Manning was part of a group that would bid on the Broncos.
Talking to Albert Breer, senior NFL reporter for the Monday Morning Quarterback. Washington football team's going to have a big announcement coming up next month. 2-2-22, which we pointed out is Groundhog's Day, so maybe they don't change the name. They just keep it what it is. But you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen this year from that organization, I mean, it's almost like comical how that it was illustrated on Sunday with the barrier collapsing and the fans falling onto Jalen Hurts. It's like as much work as they've done over the last 2 years to try and fix things there, they had a long way to go. And so, between everything that's happened there, really over the 22 years since Dan Snyder bought the team, but really, like when you between the nickname, obviously the workplace scandal, everything that's happened there over the last couple of years, it's really clear how far they've had to go. But, I do think that they've got some good people in place now to change the way we think about that organization. And, I think that this is a big part of it for all of them. So, the president, Jason Wright's obviously spearheaded this effort. And, on the football side, Ron Rivera and Marty Herney and Martin Mayhew, I think have made some progress. This is a big year for them. Make no mistake about it. They took a little bit of a step back this year in that they're not going to be in the playoffs. But, from a quarterback standpoint, from, just like what the staff looks like standpoint, 2022 is a big year for the franchise. And, you'd hope that maybe the start of things like people falling out of the stadium would start to end. And I do think that the rebrand is a big part of all of that.
What are the Buccaneers doing with Antonio Brown? What's the game plan here or strategy?
I think that right now they're working with the league on how to handle this. I look, like, I think we need to look at this for what it is, Dan. I mean, this isn't, Father Flanagan here. Like, this was a football situation from the start, and that they brought him in the first place to appease their quarterback because Tom Brady wanted him there in 2020. He was sort of a bonus piece to the offense in 2020, the same way Gronk was, because those guys had got in late and it was the COVID year and everything else. Those guys had nice contributions down the stretch. Brady loves both those guys. Brady had the team bring both those guys back. Both those guys had a full offseason. Both became an integral part of the offense. And obviously, Gronk it's not fair in any non-football way to connect Gronk to AB, but that was sort of the way those acquisitions happened. And when they struggled in midseason this year, a big part of it was because those guys had become integral parts of what they do offensively. And so when AB's situation went haywire over the last month, with the fake vaccination card, the lying, the suspension, everything else, the reason they held on to him was because he had become an integral part to what they do from a football standpoint. And he had become too valuable. He'd become valuable enough where I think the decision makers there have built up some tolerance for what he was going to bring off the field, where that tolerance had been zero a year before. And so I think that's what this is. It's every single facet of this decision of the Antonio Brown's run in Tampa. All of it was guided by football. And right up to the very end, where at this point he's become more of a problem than he was a value to the team, which is amazing because he was pretty valuable to the team at the end.
I don't think we're being fair to Bruce Arians when we say to Bruce, was it a mistake to sign Antonio Brown? He got a Super Bowl out of this. They knew that they were getting somebody.
They knew what they were signing up for.
Yes, but everybody's enabled Antonio Brown. Even Tom Brady saying we should show compassion. He's got some problems. Well, did he have problems before he took off his clothes, in the Jets game? Of course he did. So it feels like we're going, hey, he's got problems. Okay, was anybody addressing these problems prior to what happened Sunday? Is he addressing these? His agent, does anybody give a damn about him? Because he might get another job here, Albert, but he's going to have the same issues.
I mean, at the end of the day, he's like Bruce Arians, a football coach. He's not a psychologist. He's not a self-help guy. He's not he's a football coach. You know what I mean?
And Brady wanted him. Bruce was probably handcuffed to say, all right, Tom really wants him. He wanted him in New England.
And look, and you know what? Like, New England did the same things for Tom, right? Like, there were Josh Gordon, when they brought Josh Gordon in, I can tell you for a fact, like, the Patriots made it clear to Tom, like, okay, this is your guy now. Yeah. Like, you're gonna look out for him, right? And so Tom has become used to being in these situations where it's, I want this player on my team. I like this player. I need more help offensively, and to facilitate that, I'm going to personally take the guy under my wing. And that's what happened with AB. And I do think, I do think by the end, like, Tom really did like Antonio. Like, I think that there was a strong relationship there. But like the idea that football was going to keep him in line, it didn't in Pittsburgh, right? Like, where, like, at the end, like a team MVP, not like a team MVP award going to Juju Smith-Schuster set him off, right? And that was a place that had done everything to facilitate it for him. So I don't know, like, where, I mean, to me, like, continuing to give him opportunities isn't football saving Antonio Brown. It's reinforcing that he can get away with whatever the hell he wants. Yeah. And every time he got another chance, whether it was after, the end in Pittsburgh, whether it was after the whole bizarre end in Oakland with the feet and the helmet and everything else, or the way things ended in New England with him taking an open shot at ownership on his way out the door after threatening people who were accusing him of some very serious things, continuing to give him opportunities wasn't football saving him. It was sending him a very clear message, Dan. Like, football is going to allow you to act however the hell you want because your talent supersedes everything else that you've done.
Albert, great to talk to you as always. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Albert Breer. And that was well put. You know, because until he doesn't have a job, I mean, that's when reality sets in. That's when you know, okay, nobody cares. No more options here. Like, I look back on Meta World Peace. He knew he had a problem, and he went and he worked on getting better. And I have total respect for that. I mean, he's interesting, he's quirky, he's not dangerous. Antonio Brown is dangerous. Albert, the lead senior NFL reporter, lead strategist for the Monday Morning Quarterback.